Hello. Hey, you guys. It's Monday. I think, gosh, I don't even know what friggin' day it is. The 18th, maybe. Is it? Saturday was the 15th. Sunday. So this is the 17th, I guess. Monday. Um, so I just want to share a couple of things with you. I'm going to read today from The Power of Now, which I'm excited about, on enlightened relationships. Imagine, sounds like a contradiction. But I want to tell you a bit about my weekend. This weekend, Russell Brand was here, and I went to his show, Russell, and it was great. It really was. It wasn't. It wasn't really a comedy show. It was. It was funny, but he really spoke about awakening. It was a show really about awakening, and the whole thing. He talked about identifying the problem, which is often selfishness and self-centeredness, and I talked a lot about that. He talked about his own recovery, a lot about his own recovery and his own journey of awakening, which is, nothing more powerful than our own personal story of awakening. And so he talked about, his search for consciousness, his search for spiritual connection in drugs, alcohol, and all the good stuff. He did it all in a big way, and just totally fucked himself up. And I can relate, as well, because I've been in recovery for many years and have looked everywhere for this connection that we seem to be missing, and many of us have looked high and low for this connection. I call it the God hole, where there seems to be this empty part in us. And for many of us, it started when we were really young. For me, certainly it did. I remember, even before I ever drank, and I started drinking at 13 or 14, but before that, recognizing that there was something missing, and which was, I discovered that. Just one second, I'll be right back. Hi. Hey, Joe. I'm just doing my reading, and I just knew as soon as I start, somebody.
Well, I was just heading over to the Mustang shop down there.
Oh yeah. How have you been?
Saw your
Shake your hand.
42nd. I said, oh,
Yeah, it's nice to see you. Yeah. Well, I just started.
okay.
And I don't know if you know, but I read. I read a book this spring called Letting Go. Now I'm reading Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle. And I'm reading.
I have all those from years ago, but I don't remember them. Well,
Yes.
I remember. I just don't have them.
So this book, The Power of Now, of course, I read 20 years ago.
Yeah.
But I'm reading it online too.
Yeah.
And it's so different.
When you do it again.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Because who's different?
Yeah.
Me.
Yeah. Because somebody changed the words.
Honestly, and we wrote this book. And so I'm having a lot of fun. I'm over halfway through, and I sit down and read usually for about a half an hour to,
Yeah. Yeah.
an audience, and sometimes, 200 or 300 or 400 people will watch it over a week or whatever. And but yeah, I love doing it. We started a podcast as well.
Yeah. No, I see it down there.
And
I don't know if it's one on the. It comes on Facebook or something.
well, I do one on Facebook. Then I got a guy that's taking the words off the Facebook Live and doing just the audio on a podcast.
Oh, I see. Okay.
And
So podcast is just audio.
yes,
I,
yeah.
yeah.
Oh yeah, no, it is. Yeah, nice to see you. Love it if you pop back. You certainly have a look around. We're moving out of here pretty soon.
Yeah.
The whole meditation stool business is working, and that's going to be my primary focus.
Stick with that.
Yep. And I don't need this over. It's $4 grand a month.
That's a lot.
Yeah, 50, 60K by the time I got it. A year, that's a lot. some of the stuff.
Fucked up all along the way.
Yeah, so when I'm moving, it's going to, my rent's going to be there.
Oh, so where, are you somewhere down here then?
No,
or-
up off Edmonton Trail.
Oh, up in the north?
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
closer to me.
Is it?
Yeah.
Well, it'll be really obvious, because I'll let people know where we are.
Yeah.
And come, we have meditation group every Monday night at 6:30.
Monday I usually have granddaughter had ball.
Yes, yeah, you go.
I go to all her ball, but she
Yeah.
had an injury last week in her arm, and all of a sudden I got all this time on my hands.
Great.
Because I'm driving. She did, I
Yeah.
probably average 7 games a week,
Yeah,
at least.
yeah,
And you're driving all over the place,
Yeah.
but all of a sudden you have a
Yeah.
worthwhile endeavor. And
nice.
you're like,
So, 6:30, come tonight, 6 o'clock.
I don't know if she's gonna play. I asked her yesterday. She's been going to doctors and therapy.
If she doesn't play, so I'm actually
You go,
live
I'll
now,
take
so
a
I'm
quick
around.
walk before
Do.
I leave.
Okay,
And-
yeah. Okay, see ya.
Yeah.
Hey, I had a friend just drop in, and I'm here by myself. So I just stopped to chat with him. How you guys? Hey, James. Awesome. So I was talking about Russell Brand this weekend. It was really good, and personal. And he really shared, I think, it would be hard for you to have been there and not get the possibility of living in a higher vibration. And that many of us, in our search, through drugs and alcohol and whatnot, through addiction, we were looking for that connection. We didn't know that that's what we were looking for. I remember when I first started drinking, I thought, God, why have they been hiding this? I found it. This is awesome. And of course, in time, it turned on me. And that's what Russell talked about. And eventually, he just had to find another solution. And for him, a solution that he found was a spiritual solution, which in his conversation was the 12 steps. And you're all familiar with the 12 steps that were written and pioneered by Bill Wilson in the 30s, and it turned into so many different programs. Of course, it started with Alcoholics Anonymous, and my friend David Hawkins, in his book Letting Go, and many of his books, speaks of the 12 steps as one of the highest vibrating spiritual belief systems on the planet. Can you imagine? That's pretty cool. That's a huge endorsement. And Russell gave it a huge endorsement. In his book, of course, called Recovery, he talks about that. And if you have any curiosity about the 12 steps, you can certainly get in touch with me, and I'll direct you in the direction that I think you might need to go in, and if I can. And if not, get this book and read it, because he really does a synopsis of the. He really does a great synopsis of the disease of addiction and alcoholism and drug addiction, and he talks about all the other addictions too, food and sex and work, many things to take us out of the moment. And why do we not want to be in the moment? Because often we're suffering from fear. Fear is really the enemy. Fear keeps us from. Fear is false evidence appearing real. It's fear, false evidence appearing real. So we make shit up. Usually, it's about stuff that's not even going to happen. As a matter of fact, we make up such stories of the possible, calamities of the future that we create them, and so fear doesn't want us to be present in the moment. Fear's running the show. Fear's managing our lives often, and that doesn't work long term, does it? And so Russell talked about that, and fear, false evidence appearing real. Some people say fear, fuck everything and run. Anyway, but when we are present, when we drop into this being, and we're really here, like what I'm reading about it in this book, is then fear, there's no place for fear then. We're shining the light in there. Fear disappears. And we can breathe, and we can be happy, joyous, and free, and we can be connected to that source, because we are here as emissaries, if you will, of the source. We are, the spearhead of this being growing in mankind. I think has a spot in the evolution of the universe, and though not but and we need to be able to be free of fear to really realize our full potential in this moment and in this life. So Russell's really made a life of sharing about that, and I would say that his primary purpose and my primary purpose are very much the same, and that's to help people who are caught in that fear cycle, in that emptiness, and running from relationship to relationship. I did it, trying to find something, the magic, and the next panacea. So Awakening, Project Awakening, baby, is the name of our game, and I see meditation as a big part of that. That's why we've created these meditation kits to help people, be attracted to, to have a space to sit in the morning to practice from, and it's happening globally. And Russell spoke about meditation. Of course, Eckhart talks about it. My friend David Hawkins, although we never met, I consider him my friend. He spoke of it many, many times. All the great teachers have spoken of it. And it's funny that, what's happened with spirituality is that it's so open now. It's so available for you. And it's there's a lot of things under the umbrella of spirituality that maybe are not taking us into ourselves and into the moment. There's lots of little side shows. And the main show is finding the moment, being here and being present, and not being distracted by the side shows. And there's a lot of belief systems and a lot of conversation about everything from, unicorns to numerology to astrology and all of these things. And because we have fear, because many of us live in fear, and we've been there for so long, we hardly even know that that's what it is. And so we're trying all these things looking for some certainty, and there is no certainty. There's only this moment. There's no guarantee of the future. We're all, like Russell said the other night, we're all going to die. All the greats have died. Churchill's dead, and Gandhi's dead, and Osho's dead, and people do die, and that's the deal. And so when we're here, how do we live? In the moment. In the moment. Be here now. And there is nothing else. And as we're here in this moment, then we feel the connection, and we start to open up and experience the power of the moment. Like Eckhart Tolle said, the power of now. Anyway, I was really impressed with Russell. I really was. I was happy that he did what he did. He really promoted Fresh Start, by the way, Fresh Start Recovery Center, which is a spiritually based recovery center for drugs and alcohol addiction, and it works. And there's some great people there that are making it work. So here we go. I hope you guys like this. I'm going to keep doing it. And oh, by the way, a couple of quick things. We're on Patreon. You can, I'm going to start to pitch that a little bit, because the only way I'm going to be able to do this going into the future is to be supported by my community, and I think it's legitimate to ask for that. So I'm going to begin to ask for that. And the other thing is, we have a meditation group here on Monday evenings. Come. 6:30 this evening, we sit together. It's a beautiful thing that happens here at the shop, It really is a beautiful thing. So come and sit with us. And you know, we're moving shortly. And moving, you know, to be quite honest with you, I see my new vision as helping people create meditation spaces, also in teaching meditation, sharing this gift of nowness, of isness, of the one, of being here and finding that. You know, there is, and I guess I can say this honestly from my own experience, because I traveled the world to be with many, many teachers, thinking that somebody else was going to kind of open it up for me. And the way that we've accessed this moment, this inner peace, this peace beyond all understanding, the way that we access it is a couple of ways that I believe we access it. One is gratitude. I think gratitude is you know, thank you, thank you, thank you. You know, just be in your thank you. Thank you, God. Thank you, universe. Thank you, divine intelligence. You know, thank you, thank you, thank you. And that thank you, even if you're not feeling it, brings you into it. It's a beautiful thing. And another way, of course, is meditation. To sit and feel the space between the thoughts, watching the mind rushing around, you know, scampering around, trying to organize things, trying to, you know, imagine the different scenarios of the future and what we can do if this happens, and what do we do if that happens, what if she says this, and or in the past, judging. You know, I call the mind the meaning-making machine. And when we're making meaning, we're judging. It's the same. We're looking at whatever. Gosh, it's a sunny day, and we make a meaning out of it. Wow, this must mean something, you know? And it's bullshit. It's just a sunny day, you know? Isn't that great? You know, enjoy it. What was I going with that? Judgment. Oh, so meditation, watching the thoughts, being here now, dropping into that space. Eckhart talks about how to do it in such a great way. And then there's prayer, gratitude, meditation, prayer. I was sharing with a friend this morning that prayer is amazing. And I think there's a magic ingredient in prayer that helps us to be present. And that ingredient is humility. Humility. When we're asking for something for someone else, or even sometimes for ourselves, to be shown a much bigger piece of the vision, maybe, or to have our fear removed. You know, it's we're humbling ourselves. We're asking for a gift, and so I think the humility is almost the ingredient in prayer that has the power, you know, that brings us into this moment. And the other thing is love and service. So when we're lovingly serving others, when we're serving others without expectation, unconditionally, it brings us into this moment. We're in the bliss. So those are the things that I know about, and maybe there's more, but those things help us to be present in the moment. Anyway, that's the world according to David. Shit. So here we go. We're on page 145, chapter 8, Enlightened Relationships. Enter the now from wherever you are, he says. He starts with a question. I always thought that true enlightenment is not possible except through love in a relationship between a man and a woman. This person's asking a question. Isn't this what makes us whole again? How can one's life be fulfilled until that happens? And Eckhart Tolle said, or maybe it's part of her question. No, he asks her, is this true in your experience? Has this happened to you? She answers, not yet. But how could it be otherwise? I know that it will happen. In other words, he says, you're waiting for an event in time to save you. Is this not the core error that we've been talking about? Salvation is not elsewhere in place or time. It is here and now. So I know that you know, sometimes we've been feeling that if we wait for this magical relationship, we'll we'll really know peace. We'll find our inner selves. Then she says the question, what does this statement mean? Salvation is here and now. I don't understand it. I don't even know what salvation means. He says, Eckhart says, most people pursue physical pleasures or various forms of psychological gratification because they believe that those things will make them happy or free them from feeling of fear or lack. Happiness may be perceived as a heightened sense of aliveness, attained through physical pleasure, or a more secure and more complete sense of self attained through some form of psychological gratification. This is the search for salvation from a state of unsatisfactoriness or insufficiency. Invariably, any satisfaction they obtain is short-lived. So, the condition of satisfaction or fulfillment is usually projected once again. Into an imaginary point away from the here and now. When I obtain this or am free of that, then I will be okay. This is an unconscious mindset that creates the illusion of salvation in the future. Wow, I love this guy. True salvation is fulfillment, peace. Fulfillment, comma, peace, comma. Life in all its fullness. It is to be who you are, to feel within you the good that has no opposite, the joy of being that depends on nothing outside itself. Joy of being that depends on nothing outside itself. It is felt not as a passing experience, but as an abiding presence. We talked about this morning. In theistical language, it is to know God, not as something outside you, but as your own inner essence. True salvation is to know yourself as an inseparable part of the timeless and formless one. True salvation is to know yourself as an inseparable part of the timeless and formless one life from which all that exists derives its being. True salvation is a state of freedom. True salvation is a state of freedom from fear. I told you, a state of freedom from fear, from suffering, from a perceived state of lack and insufficiency, and therefore from all wanting, or needing, or grasping, or clinging. It is freedom from compulsive thinking, from negativity, and, above all, from past and future as a psychological need. Your mind is telling you that you cannot get there from here. Something needs to happen, or you need to become this or that before you can be free and fulfilled. It is saying, in fact, that you need time, that you need to find, sort out, and do, and achieve, and acquire, and become, or understand something before you can be free or complete. You see time as the means to salvation, whereas in truth, it is the greatest obstacle to salvation. You think that you can't get there from where and who you are in this moment because you are not yet complete or good enough. But the truth is that here and now is the only point from where you can get there. You get there by realizing that you are there already. You get there by realizing that you are there already. So realizing is realizing, not just kind of being able to talk about it, but you get there by realizing you are there already. You find God the moment you realize that you don't need to seek God. So there is no only way to salvation. There is no only way to salvation. any condition can be used, but no peculiar condition is needed. However, there is only one point of access: the now. The now. Only one point of access: the now. It's beautiful, eh? There can be no salvation away from this moment. You are lonely and without a partner. There can be no salvation away from this moment. You are lonely and without a partner, ? Enter the now from there. You're in a relationship. Enter the now from there. There's nothing you can ever do or attain that will get you closer to salvation than it is at this moment. This may be hard to grasp for a mind accustomed to thinking that everything worthwhile is in the future. Nor can anything that you ever did or that was done to you in the past prevent you from saying yes to what is and taking your attention deeply into the now. You cannot do this in the future. You do it now or not at all. Next subtitle: Love/hate relationships. Unless and until you access the consciousness frequency of presence, all relationships, and particularly intimate relationships, are deeply flawed and ultimately dysfunctional. Imagine that. Unless and until you access the consciousness frequency of presence, all relationships, and particularly intimate relationships, are deeply flawed and ultimately dysfunctional. Isn't that hilarious? Because the therapist, the counselor, they're messing around with the odds and sods, trying to get us to have a successful relationship. I call it arranging the chairs on the Titanic. They may seem perfect for a while, such as when you are in love, but invariably that apparent perfection gets disrupted as arguments, conflicts, dissatisfaction, and emotional or even physical violence occur with increasing frequency. It seems that most love relationships become love-hate relationships before long. Love can then turn into savage attack. Feelings of hostility or complete withdrawal of affection at the flick of a switch. This is considered normal. The relationship then oscillates for a while, a few months or a few years, between the polarities of love and hate, and it gives you as much pleasure as it gives you pain. It is not uncommon for couples to become addicted to these cycles. Their drama makes them feel alive. When a balance between the positive and negative polarities is lost, and the negative, destructive cycles occur with increasing frequency and intensity, which tends to happen sooner or later, then it will not be long before the relationship finally collapses. So isn't it just so awesome that the answer is not in working on the relationship. The answer is in working on ourselves. Be present. I'm going to say that again. The answer is never in working on the relationship. The answer is on being here now, being with ourselves. We cannot possibly be with someone else if we're not with ourselves. Thank you. Beautiful. What a beautiful piece. He says, it may appear that if you could only eliminate the negative or destructive cycles, then all would be well and the relationship would flower beautifully. But alas, this is not possible. The polarities are mutually independent. Polarities are mutually interdependent. You cannot have one without the other. The positive already contains within itself the as yet unmanifested negative. Both are in are in fact different aspects of the same dysfunction. Wow. I'm speaking here of what are commonly called romantic relationships, not for true love, which has no opposite because it arises from beyond the mind. Love, as a continuous state, is as yet very rare as conscious human beings. Isn't he funny? He's giving you hope, though. He's giving you hope. It is possible, but only if we become a conscious human being. The positive. I just got a phone call. I forgot to put my phone on airplane mode. Okay. Both are in fact different aspects of the same dysfunction. I'm speaking here. The no opposite because it arises from the mind. Love as a continuous state is as yet very rare as conscious human beings. Brief and elusive glimpses of love, however, are possible whenever there is a gap in the stream of mind. The negative side of a relationship is, of course, more easily recognizable as dysfunctional than the positive one, and it's also easier to recognize the source of negativity in your partner than to see it in yourself. It can manifest in many forms: possessiveness, yes, jealousy, control, withdrawal, and unspoken resentment, the need to be right, insensitivity and self-absorption, emotional demands and manipulation, the urge to argue, criticize and judge and blame or attack, anger, unconscious revenge for past pain inflicted by a parent, and rage and physical violence. Sounds like fun. Not. On the positive side, you are in love with your partner. This is at first a deeply satisfying state. You feel intensely alive. Your existence has suddenly become meaningful because someone needs you, wants you, makes you feel special. And you do the same for him or her. When you are together, you feel whole. The feeling can become so intense that the rest of the world fades into insignificance. However, he says, you may also have noticed that there is a neediness and a clinging quality to that intensity. You become addicted to the other person. He or she acts on you like a drug. You are on a high when the drug is available. But even the possibility or the thought that he or she might no longer be there for you can lead to jealousy and possessiveness and attempts at manipulation through emotional blackmail, blaming and accusing, fear of loss. If the other person does leave you, this can give rise to the most intense hostility or the most profound grief and despair. All this shit happens, eh? Been there. Lots. Been there lots. Oh, yeah. So my life has been such a learning in this area. Because I was never really there. I was always looking for something, wanting something and outside of me to fill me up. And I can't imagine what it would be like now. We'll see if it's meant to be, something in the relating will happen. And the neat thing is that if it's not, that's okay. Isn't that beautiful? Nice to be there. Nothing's missing. It's a beautiful state. If the other person does leave you, this can give rise to the most intense hostility or the most profound grief and despair. In an instant, loving tenderness can turn into savage attack or dreadful grief. It really feels like the drug addict, needing his fix. Where is the love now? Can love change into its opposite in an instant? Was it love in the first place, or just an addictive grasping and clinging? He is talking. He says it too. It's like an addiction. Oh, then the next subtitle is Addiction and the Search for Wholeness. Why should we become addicted? Why should we become addicted to another person? It's the question. The reason why the romantic love relationship is such an intense and universally sought after experience is that it seems to offer liberation from the deep-seated state of fear. There we go. Fear is the enemy. The deep-seated state of fear or need or lack and incompleteness that is part of the human condition in its unredeemed and unenlightened state. Who of us have lived there, are still living there, and looking for a way out? There's a bit of work involved, but not really. I mean, we could just pray and ask to be awakened, to see that all power is in the moment. This is a physical as well as psychological dimension to this. There is a physical as well as a psychological dimension to this state. On the physical level, you are obviously not whole, nor will you ever be. You are either a man or a woman, which is to say only half of the whole. On this level, the longing for wholeness, the return to oneness, manifests as male-female attraction, a man's need for a woman, woman's need for a man. It is an almost irresistible urge. It is an almost irresistible urge for union with the opposite energy polarity. The root of this physical urge is a spiritual one. The root of this physical urge is a spiritual one. I thought so. The God hole, I call it. The longing for an end to duality, a return to the state of wholeness. Sexual union is the closest you can get to this state on the physical plane. Wow. This is why it is most deeply satisfying experience the physical realm can offer. Yet sexual union is no more than a fleeting glimpse of the wholeness, an instant of bliss. As long as it is unconsciously sought as a means of salvation, you are seeking the end of duality at the level of the form where it cannot be found. You are given a tantalizing glimpse of heaven, but you are not allowed to dwell there and find yourself again in a separate body. Wow. Hey Chris, thanks for dropping in. I'm reading from The Power of Now. It's so good. I'm in the chapter on relationships, and he's really nailing it. It's really good. You're given a tantalizing glimpse of heaven, but you are not allowed to dwell there and find yourself again in a separate body. On the psychological level, the sense of lack and incompleteness is, if anything, even greater than on the physical level. As long as you are identified with the mind, you have an external derived sense of self. Derived sense of self. We see ourselves in our our facade. We identify with our jobs or our sex or our position as a father or all of those things that are outside of us. And we are none of those things. We are all of those things, but that's not really who we are. As long as you are identified with the mind, you have an externally derived sense of self. That is to say, you get your sense of who you are from being things that ultimately have nothing to do with who you are. Just like I said. Whole social roles, your social role, he says, possessions, external appearances, successes and failures, belief systems, and so on. Like saying we're a Catholic or we're Canadian or, we're, different age groups like millennials or, baby boomers. I'm the last of the baby boomers. It means nothing. It's just whatever, and it doesn't hold any weight. Possessions, belief systems, and so on. This false, mind-made self, the ego, feels vulnerable, insecure, and is always seeking new things to identify with, to give it a feeling that it exists. But nothing is ever enough to give it lasting fulfillment. Its fear remains. Its sense of lack and neediness remains. But then, that special relationship comes along. It seems to be the answer to all the ego's problems and to meet all its needs. At least, this is how it appears at first. All the other things that you derived your sense of self from before now become relatively insignificant. It's because I met the new girl and she's the one. She's the one. Oh my gosh, can't believe it. I feel so good. I feel 18 again. All of that stuff. I've done it all. It's amazing, and we get caught up in it. It's beautiful, it's a drug, and it is a physical drug that it emits, Hey, you guys, thanks. So I'll start that paragraph over again. But then that special relationship comes along. It seems to be the answer to all our ego's problems and to meet all its needs. At least this is how it appears at first. All the other things that you derived your sense of self from before now become relatively insignificant. You now have a single focal point that replaces them all, that gives you meaning in your life and through which you define your identity. The person you're in love with, that's your focal point, the person you're in love with. You are no longer a disconnected fragment in an uncaring universe, or so it seems. Your world now has a center, the loved one. The fact that the center is outside you, and that therefore, you still have an eternally derived sense of self. You still have an externally derived sense of self. You still have an externally derived sense of self. Does not seem to matter at first. Oh, okay. The fact that you still have does not seem to matter at first. What matters is that the underlying feelings of incompleteness, of fear, of lack, and unfulfillment, so characteristic with the egoic state, are no longer there. Or are they? Have they dissolved, or do they continue to rise underneath the happy surface reality? If in your relationship you experience both love and the opposite of love, attack, emotional violence, and so on, then it is likely that you're confusing ego attachment and addictive clinging with love. You cannot love your partner one moment and attack him or her the next. True love has no opposite. True love has no opposite. True love has no opposite. Unconditional. True love has no opposite. If your love has an opposite, then it is not love, but a strong ego need for a more complete and deeper sense of self. A need that the other person temporarily meets. It is the ego's substitute for salvation. And for a short time, it almost does feel like salvation. We get high, baby. And there comes a point when our partner behaves in ways that fail to meet our needs, or rather those of our ego. The feelings of fear, pain, and lack that are intrinsically part of egoic consciousness, but have been covered up by the love relationship now resurface. Ha ha. Just as with every other addiction, you are on a high when the drug is available, but invariably there comes a time when the drug no longer works for you, when these painful feelings reappear. You feel them even more strongly than before, and there is more And what is more, you now perceive your partner to be the cause of these feelings. Bitch hurt me. Yeah, bastard doesn't care. I was hurt. That's just like so adolescent, isn't it? I know. I mean, I've done it well into my senior years, and yet it's so adolescent. It really is. Perceive your partner as the cause of those feelings. This means that you project them outward and attack the other with all the savage violence that is part of your pain. This attack may awaken the partner's own pain, and he or she may counter your attack. At this point, the ego is still unconsciously hoping that its attack or its attempts at manipulation will be sufficient punishment to induce your partner to change their behavior so that it can use them again as a cover-up for our pain. Isn't that crazy? Every addiction arises from the unconscious refusal to face the unconscious refusal to face and move through our own pain. Every addiction starts with pain and ends with pain. Whatever the substance you are addicted to, whether it's alcohol, food, legal or illegal drugs, or a person, you're using something or somebody to cover up your pain. That is why, after the initial euphoria has passed, there is so much unhappiness, so much pain in the intimate relationships. They do not cause pain and unhappiness. They bring out the pain and unhappiness is already in you. Every addiction does that. Every addiction reaches a point where it does not work for you anymore. And then you find the pain more intensely than ever. This is one reason why most people are always trying to escape from the present moment and are seeking some kind of salvation in the future. The first thing that they might encounter if they focus their attention on the now is their own pain. And this is what they fear. Fear, baby. If they only knew how easy it is to access in the now the power of presence that dissolves the past and its pain. The reality that dissolves the illusion. Let's unread that little sentence again just a second. This is the one reason why most people are always trying to escape from the present moment and are seeking some kind of salvation in the future. The first thing is that they might encounter, or the first thing that they might encounter if they focus their attention on the now is their own pain. And this is what they fear. If they only knew how easy it is to access the now, the power of presence that dissolves the past and its pain, the reality that dissolves the illusion. If they only knew how close they are to their own reality, how close to God. Avoidance of relationship is an attempt to avoid pain, as avoidance of relationships in an attempt to avoid pain is not the answer either. The pain is there anyway. 3 failed relationships in as many years are more likely to force you into awakening than 3 years on a desert island or shut away in your room. But you could bring intense presence into your aloneness. That would work for you too. Wow. Well, I think that's it. Hi, Maria. Thank you. Yeah. Well, good. We are going to have lots in common when we meet, aren't we? Thanks for sharing that. So I'm on page 153, and I think that's enough for today. I have just read, 10 pages. That's kind of my limit. But I'm going to try and do this every day this week. I want to finish this book here soon. There's only about 75 or 80 pages left, so I think I can do it in the not too distant future. And I don't think I'm going to finish this chapter yet. There's still another little while. Oh, quite a bit. Oh my gosh, it could take me 3 days to finish this chapter. Anyway, so we're on page 153, and we'll get back to this tomorrow. That's it for today. I love you guys, and thanks so much for listening and sharing and commenting, and I want to remind you again about Patreon. I have a Patreon link. It's on my page here somewhere, and anything that you can do. What's happening for me. Just a little side note: we're changing the business model, and I'm moving away from having a furniture store and a kind of a thing that I've got right now, which is retail based, into primarily an online business, and I'll have a little space where people can drop in and visit, and where we'll have meditation groups and that kind of stuff. But we're going to move into a new realm, I think, and of teaching meditation and working with people, and I believe that this way of doing this online presence is very helpful for people, and so we're going to continue doing this. And the only way I can do this is if you help us with the Patreon, and you can do $1 a month, whatever. It just it would make a difference. Helps pay the bills, keep the thing rolling. It'll come from somewhere, but if I don't reach out, if I don't share with you the possibility, well, then you don't know. So Patreon, I think it's on my Facebook page, a link for it, and if not, it will be before the end of today. Okay, love you guys lots, and just be here now, meditate, pray, service to others, be grateful in each moment, and it's the key. It is the door openers. Those are the door openers. Okay, love you. Cheers.